Good morning, Newton County. My name is Christy Cobb. I am a StudySync implementation specialist that will be walking you through today's session, really focused on StudySync bringing literature to life and looking at the basics as well as some of the awesome features, tools, and resources that you have in order to best support you and your students throughout the upcoming school year. Just a little bit about myself. I am your district-specific StudySync specialist. I once was a 5th grade ELA teacher who looped back with her first ever students to teach them 8th grade ELA to work on the validity of my grad school program. I went on to become a dean of students and then an assistant principal at an all-boys school, and that is where I first found out about StudySync. I was writing curriculum in-house for all of our ELA teachers throughout the network. I found out about StudySync, thought it was an awesome curriculum, and that the digital component could not be beat. We were not able to get StudySync for our students and for my boys. However, the next best thing I was able to do was actually go work for StudySync, being a lead writer and academic designer on the curriculum that you all are using, and I get to walk you through today. I became an implementation specialist to do exactly what I'm doing right now, which is to support district teachers and leaders in their implementation of StudySync and the success of all of their students. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. I dropped it in the chat, but for those of you that joined me after I dropped it in, again, welcome. If you have any questions during our time together, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I will check the chat periodically to address any questions that are dropped there. If I think that they can hold out to the end during our Q&A portion, I'll let them hold. If it's something that I feel just needs to be answered in the moment and we can't push for it without it, I'll stop and address that question at that time. If not, one other thing to note is that I do have a second monitor. So if you see me turning off to the side like this, it's because I'm just checking on that monitor and doing anything like that. If not, let's go ahead and get started looking at StudySync, going through some of the basics, understanding the whys, and finding out some of those great features and tools. So through our time together, we're going to answer this big question. What tools and resources do I have to teach reading and writing skills to my students' needs? We're going to look at the structure of the thematic unit. We're going to have a chance to look at the close reading routine, how to use it, and really dive into the why behind the different components of the StudySync curriculum. We're going to do a quick overview of how to create and assign assignments, navigating to that assignment section, as well as setting up any of the scaffolds so that your students are receiving the differentiation that they may need. I'm also going to highlight various different features, tools, and resources along the way, as well as drop a lot of pro tips on ways in which you can modify instruction or pacing to fit your specific class needs. So let's first talk about the why. StudySync, when we came together to create this awesome close reading routine, we worked with Dr. Tim Shanahan and Dr. Doug Fisher in order to best understand what we can provide students in order to ensure that they are having an enriching experience every time they enter the ELA classroom. We noted that there were some fundamentals that have to be there, and we understood that there are ways that we also have to push our students through the text that we give them and the activities that they engage in on a daily basis. Let's hear a little bit from Dr. Tim Shanahan about this why and his take on how StudySync all came to be.
I'm happy to be here to help introduce StudySync to you. These days, secondary educators are more focused on disciplinary literacy than ever before. Research has revealed the importance of teaching all students to read like historians, scientists, mathematicians. But this matters even in the English class, since literature itself is a vital and important discipline. Learning to read like an English professor or a literary critic is a worthwhile goal. Colleges more than ever are seeking students who not only can read with comprehension, but who can provide a sophisticated reading of stories, novels, plays, poetry, and literary nonfiction too. StudySync introduces students to rich literary texts, both contemporary and classical, and engages them in close readings of those texts. Yes, students need to learn to read literary text to grasp the plot or the surface message of a poem. Being able to summarize a text or to retell the key elements of a story in a coherent manner are important things. However, students also have to learn to dig below this surface information to gain purchase on what the underlying meaning of a story or a poem may be, interpreting the symbols, metaphors, and other poetic devices in order to plumb the depths of meaning. But even that kind of incisive reading isn't sufficient. Our students also have to learn to understand how a literary work communicates its meaning and evokes our emotions and sense of beauty. Understanding how authors use diction and structure to accomplish their purposes and to make us think and feel is essential. And students need to develop comfort in discussing, evaluating, and critiquing texts, both in terms of their content, but also in terms of their aesthetic values. StudySync's videos model for students how various literary elements come into play in making sense of what a text says, what it means, how it works. And this knowledge is both reinforced and extended through analytical, critical, and synthetic writing opportunities. Research shows that reading comprehension and knowledge of the content of text both increase when students have the opportunity to write about text in these extensive ways. I've been proud to contribute to the development of StudySync and hope that you're able to see why so many teachers are now turning to it to help them to make their students better readers and writers. Thanks for being with us today, but more importantly, thank you for your work every day. It matters.
One of the amazing things that Dr. Tim Shanahan points out to me and really resonates with the work that Dr. Doug Fisher did with us as well, as he states that we really want students to plunge the depths of knowledge. We don't want them just sticking to a surface level understanding of what the text may say. We truly want them to get to the point where they can really discuss and engage with their peers around what does the text mean? How does it do that? How does it work? And we do that through StudySync in the reading routine that Dr. Doug Fisher helped us come up with, and the close reading routine that he also was using in his classroom down in Southern California. Dr. Doug Fisher really helped us think about the fact that students must be able to access these complex texts with very intentional instruction, and in order for them to access a very deep comprehension of that particular text or any text that they are going to engage with. We do this in the ways that we've incorporated different strategies and components to our reading routine. We ensure that students are able to have access and are going to have a chance to read a variety of texts at a variety of complex levels. We want them to read actively by making those annotations throughout that and really focusing on the reading comprehension strategies that we all are teaching every day in our classrooms. We ask them to push a little deeper by explaining their inferences and their thoughts and citing textual evidence. We want them to apply the skills and strategies that they've learned throughout the skills lessons. And in every single part of this, they should be engaging in a collaborative conversation and then writing in response to the discussions that they're having and the text that they're reading. The three staples of an ELA classroom and ELA learning is students are going to do the following. 1, they are going to read independently. 2, they are going to discuss about what they just read about. And then 3, they are going to write in response to the discussions that they had and the information that they've learned from the text that they've read. In StudySync's close reading routine, students are doing all 3 of those components in every single lesson. From the first read to the skill to the close read, we're asking students to dig deep and plunge through the depths of knowledge that we know that they all are capable of. So what is the close reading routine, and then why are each of its components important? The close reading routine really does exactly what I just stated, which is taking students through that surface, deep, and transfer of learning. Take 10 seconds and read the quote that you see on your screen. StudySync takes all of our teachers and our students through the surface deep of transfer of learning throughout that first read, the close read, and the skill lessons. Students are answering surface level questions when they are in the first read. If you're familiar with the depth of knowledge, in that particular first read lesson, students are also grappling with level 1 and level 2 depth of knowledge questions, where we're asking them to tell us, what does the text say? And we're asking them to remember and recall. We move on into the deep as we take them into the skill lesson so they can start to tell us, how does the text actually work? And they do that a little bit more within the first part of the close read lesson, where students are doing the real analyzing within the skill focused questions. They transfer all of this learning into new tasks and situations throughout the close reading prompt, as well as extended writing prompts that you'll find in the extended writing projects, as well as other beyond activities, which you can find inside of the close read lesson plans. So let's look a little bit deeper at these components. The close read starts off with the first read, where students are going to answer that question, what does the text say? For an example, I've put the 9th grade text Marigolds on the screen. And in Marigolds, our protagonist is able to have this transformational summer day where she engages with a more elderly woman within her community. And there's this symbol of marigolds. But we want our students to be able to tell us just exactly what's in this blurb in the gray box, which is, what does the text say initially? This is going to set the foundation for our students in taking it deeper and deeper as they then move on into the skill lesson. For this particular text of Marigolds, students would move on into the skill lesson of character, where they would be able to tell us, how does the text say that? They're going to do that as they further look into the characters and see how the characters truly drive the plot. And then they'll move on into the close read, further analyzing and evaluating the evidence that they found in what the text says to understand how does it work in order to answer the larger question of, what does this all mean? In front of you, you'll see what would be a SWABAT. As you know, students will be able to tell us, right? They'll be able to do this by the end of the day. So in this, there's some bolded words that really call out some of the key portions of a first read lesson within StudySync. The first focus of a first read lesson is that students are going to do an initial reading of the text, and they are going to use reading comprehension strategies. For this particular first read lesson of Marigolds, students are going to use the reading comprehension strategy of making inferences. They're going to focus on that by drawing those inferences within their annotations, or using any of the other skills that you choose, or practices that you choose to have them do while you are instructing them. The next focus is context clues. One thing you might have noticed if you've already started with StudySync last year is that within StudySync, the first read lesson, the vocabulary tab is not automatically turned on. We did this on purpose because students have to be able to grapple with unfamiliar vocabulary words, and they have to be able to make predictions around what those words mean in order so that they can start to develop their own understanding of what does the text say and how does the text say that. Students are practicing using their context clues as they try to make predictions around what those bolded words mean within the text. And then they follow back up with this within the close read, where the vocabulary tab is automatically turned on, where they'll have a chance to show their understanding of the definitions of those words and create their own sample sentences. The final portion of the first read lesson is that students will be able to demonstrate their comprehension of the text by using textual evidence to answer the think questions. Think questions within a first read lesson are a formative assessment within StudySync. They are directly tied to standards. And when you are grading them, all of that data goes right back into your grade book in order for you to be able to do further analysis on how students are performing on specific skills and standards. Students are also within our Think questions being engaged in short constructed responses. They're writing their responses out to us so that they continue to practice what it means to say, to tell us what does the text say, as well as practice their own writing skills. You also have the opportunity to turn on a reading comprehension quiz within the first read lesson. This reading comprehension quiz is composed of multiple choice questions. They also engage in vocabulary questions as well within those reading comprehension in the reading comprehension quiz. And again, you have the opportunity to turn this on or off depending on when you want students to engage with it. The next component is that skill lesson. Here, we're really focusing on how characters' decisions are going to advance the plot within the story of Marigold. And then overall, how does it develop a story's theme in a complex set of skills? The one thing to note about StudySync skill lessons are that the skills that students are taught within a close read are spiraled back in within a close read lesson. They also develop over the course of a unit and throughout the entire 6 units of the particular grade. The other thing is that our skill lessons are really working on the gradual release model. I do, we do, you do. So we provide you within the model section of the skill lesson a chance to show students an exemplar way in which they can dive into the skill lessons. And then we ask them to work within pairs or groups in order to continue analyzing the text using that skill. And then finally show us their knowledge within the your turn. When students are complete doing this particular skill lesson within a close read lesson, we'll continue to spiral this throughout the unit so that students can continue to get practice in analyzing a text for this particular skill. The last component of the close reading routine is the close read, where students are going to engage in analyzing and evaluating the text through the skill-focused questions. As mentioned just previously, the skill-focused questions spiral in the skill lessons that students just learned within this close read set. Students will also have the chance to practice any of the skills that they've learned prior to reading this particular text as well. Students will be able to engage in a discussion with their peers around the close reading prompt prior to transferring their knowledge and showing us everything that they've gained from the first read and the skill lesson and in the final writing prompt. The writing prompt is rigorous, and we know it. It's layered with many questions within it, but we do provide your students with needs, the scaffolds that are there that you can push in, where you'll find not only an annotation guide as well as a discussion guide in order to walk students through stepping stone questions towards mastering this writing prompt. Let's take a moment and really think about all of these places. And what I'm going to do is I'm now going to jump live into our program. I'm going to take us back through some of those components, pointing out and noting some tips that may help you, as well as I'll then jump in and I'll start to show you how do you create and assign an assignment. We're now loading into our StudySync homepage. This may be familiar to some or new to others. I apologize for the slow get there for us there, but we are there. Some things to note about our homepage here is that in your users tab is where you are housing all of your students and groups. Within this users tab, this is also the location where you're setting those proficiency levels to ensure that students are receiving the slide and scaffolds at the specific level that you wish for them to. Then the assignment section is where it's going to house all of the assignments that you have sent out. And it is also where you can go to in order to see an assignment report as well as access student work and grade. Our library, which is our ever-growing digital library, which will gain 10 brand new texts every single month and 1 brand new text fully in Spanish every single month, also houses 4 additional libraries. You have a library of Blast, all of our skill lessons. You have our prompts as well as our standards library. In the assess section is where it is all of our assessments, from end of unit assessments, state test prep, or a reading diagnostic or reading comprehension test. You can find them all there, as well as be able to clone and modify and edit any of the assessments. The only assessments that you are not able to edit are those that are the reading diagnostic, at the benchmark, and the reading comprehension. This is because they are vetted to ensure that they cover all standards so that you can use these particular assessments to gauge students' performance over time, do progress monitoring, as well as set parameters around how you want to decide on student proficiency levels. And then last but not least, you have the core ELA. Within the core ELA is where you're going to find all of the curriculum created by StudySync. Within your grade level landing page, you have access to the program guide, which answers many of the how and why questions. If you are wondering what is StudySync's approach to writing? How often are they writing? Where are they going to have a chance to get specific writing skills? The program guide is going to answer that. If you have questions around the standards that we use to create the EL components and resources, that'll be in the program guide. If you want additional ideas around how or why you would modify instruction or pacing for your students and when is the best time to do this, the program guide has that. It has that and so much more. It is a great first stop at the beginning of any year, just to refresh yourself with StudySync, how it all comes together and why we truly decided to create the curriculum that we did. The next place is the grade level overview. Within the ELA grade level overview, you are going to get the breakdown of the text complexity. Within the text complexity breakdown, you're going to get introduced to each of the individual units for your specific grade. You're also going to learn about the qualitative and quantitative data that is composed for each of those given texts. I'm going to slide really quickly as I go through this to our first text complexity breakdown, which for the purpose of today's training, I'm in grade 8, unit 1, Everyone Loves a Mystery. And for this particular grade, it's going to give you the full overview of all of what the essential question and theme is for this particular unit and how the different texts are all going to connect to that essential question and theme. As you move down, it's also going to let you know the different skills, lessons that your students are going to engage with, as well as the English learner resources that you also have that are built within the ELL resources for every single grade at every single unit. The last place that you're going to find in the ELA overview is each specific text complexity. It gives you not only the Lexile level or the different ways in which a student might struggle with a particular text in the Access Complex Text Features section. It also goes ahead and lets you know the different tasks that we've created around a specific text, as well as it gives you a flat out how this text connects to the unit. This is also a great way just to see if you are like me, I still love a pen and paper. It's a great way just to come off of digging into the different clicks of the site to really just see exactly what is created around the text with StudySync to get some of the really high level hits around what the text is going to do and how it's going to function within the unit, and then make some really quick decisions around what you're going to use, the activities that you're going to do, and what you might replace or change. The next place that you are going to see is the ELA scope and sequence. It does exactly what you think it does. It calls out the skills, it calls out the standards that are covered by each of the given texts that are within a unit. It does this showing both application and instructional hits in an X and O chart. And it also is just a really great way just to go back to check at any point in time and say, I know this is what I definitely covered for my students at this point when I taught this text using StudySync. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close out those two resources. And I'm going to actually scroll all the way down to the bottom before jumping into a unit. Just a note to you that you do have additional resources here at the very bottom. One of the pro tips with StudySync is if you're ever looking for something, just always scroll to the bottom. I guarantee we probably have some gems at the end of every PDF or page that we have. So just make sure that you're doing that as you're perusing through the site. The other thing that I want to point out in this additional resources area is that you do have access to a strategies glossary. Our strategies glossary houses a wealth of activities that you're probably already doing inside of your classroom to engage your students in a really fun class experience when it comes to ELA. Many of these strategies are things that you are already doing. We've just taken the thinking out of it for you and said, this is how you can kind of incorporate it with StudySync, either using the digital or print components. All of these strategies have also been vetted by our other thought leader, which is Dr. Catlin Tucker, who really works with us on the balance of online and offline usage and blended learning. And she's used many of these strategies in her classroom down in Southern California as well. I'm going to navigate back to our additional resources area just to point out that we do have our placement and diagnostic assessment in the PDF format here in the additional resources section. You can also find the multiple choice reading comprehension section of it within the assess section of our site. However, the placement and diagnostic within the PDF format also has a Maze fluency assessment in it with that as well that you might want to check out as for those particular students that you may need additional diagnostic work with. In the additional resource section, I also want to point out that you do have PDF print-friendly versions of the end of unit assessments. You have test preparation and practice, as well as our grammar, language, and composition handbooks and language transfer handbooks that are available there. I'm going to scroll back up to the very top, and I'm actually going to enter into grade 8, unit 1. In order to call out some of the great features that you have and resources that you may want to utilize as you are getting ready to create or assign or develop any parts of your curriculum. Within a unit overview page, you note that you have that unit preview video that introduces students to the overall essential question and theme within a unit. Directly underneath it, you have the unit pacing guide, which gives you all of the tools in order to understand that our pacing is based on a 30-day unit with 40-minute class periods, and we understand that can seem aggressive. That's why we also have our priority content pacing guide if you need to use it at any point in time, where we call out the really high usage standards. We make some cuts to specific content and text, as well as we take out any repetition of direct skill instruction. Our unit pacing guide also gives you suggestions around remediation or reinforcement of particular skills and standards if your students should need it after you've done specific data analysis. I'll go a little further into a specific remediation and reinforcement skill lessons that we have within our curriculum, which are called spotlight skills, a little later on when I review the gradebook. Additionally, if you're looking at making any modifications to your pacing or you need to make any throughout the year, I want to call out your attention to the shortcuts blade here underneath the unit overview section. Within this section, we go ahead and we let you know those texts that you can cut, as well as the skill lessons that can be cut, and it will not forsake students covering any of the skills and standards that they will need in order to complete the end of unit assessment at the end of that particular unit. I'll also want to call out the difficult concept blades. This is going to let you know those skill lessons that we know that students might struggle with just a tad bit more than others. For this particular unit, it's language, style, and audience, as well as theme and setting. We also provide you additional resources at the bottom of this particular overview in order to help your students be able to access those particular skill lessons. As I scroll back up, I'm going to go over and just highlight the different blades that we have here on our left. The integrated reading and writing blade houses the instructional path. And sorry, let me close that up. The instructional path. Within the instructional path, you're going to see individual blades, and those are the different sections of that unit, as well as the different texts that students are going to engage with for that particular unit. Every single instructional path, unit 1 for any grade, is going to start with a Sync Start blade and a text. Within that Sync Start unit, we give you lessons that introduces your students to StudySync, or if this is students second year using StudySync, these are particular lessons that you may cut out. If they already know what a blast is, if they already have that skill of annotation and you're going to teach it in a different way. If you are a second year StudySync teacher, these are great lessons to kind of skip over. You may not want to skip over the text, but generally the Sync Start blade text is one that you can cut and not forsake the essential question or theme or any skill lessons that students are going to learn. But for those teachers that are going to have students that are brand new to StudySync, there are some very key lessons that are in this that get students refamiliarized with some of the foundational skills that they're going to need in order to engage in an incredible ELA classroom every single day. You'll see those such as context clues, reading comprehension strategies, you have text-dependent responses, as well as you have collaborative conversations, short constructed responses, and peer review. All of these particular lessons are happening ahead of students actually being introduced to the essential question and theme throughout the big idea blast, which will be named for that particular unit. But within the big idea blast, once they're here, they're going to start to get more specific into the essential question and themes and the skills that they'll need in order to complete that end of unit assessment with fidelity. You'll note that if you are looking for direct vocabulary instruction, you do have your content and your academic vocabulary instruction within the big idea section. And then the recognizing genre lesson is going to highlight the genre focus for this particular unit. Every single unit within your grade is going to have a genre focus, and more than 60% of the texts that are within that unit are going to come from that particular genre. The next thing to note about the instructional path is if you see those little dotted boxes around 2 or 3 texts, those are going to signal to you that you have a paired text. Within those paired text reading, that means that that final close read is going to bring in components of both of those texts, allowing students to compare and contrast the different ideas and skills that they've learned over reading those 2 texts. And then at the end of every single unit, at the middle school level, you are going to find a vocabulary review as well as a self-selected reading. The self-selected reading is where students are going to further explore the genre. They'll get ideas around other texts that are connected to the essential question and theme, and then they'll write about the particular text that they choose to select and read on their own and connect it to the essential question and theme. At the end of a high school unit, I'm just going to navigate to grade 9, the first unit, Divided We Fall. And I'm going to go to their integrated reading and writing pathway, and I'm just going to scroll down to the very bottom, and I'm going to point out to you that you also have that vocabulary review, and you also have self-selected reading. The one thing that you have at the high school level that you will not find at the middle school level is your timed writing practice. This is to increase students' stamina around SAT and ACT writing prompt styles, and you'll find that they will have direct instruction around the skill of timed writing happening twice in every single grade, and they'll have an opportunity to write in 4 of those units. I'm going to navigate right back to the 8th grade. I'm going to stay inside that core ELA unit, and I'm just going to go over the other remaining blades that you're going to find. You have the extended writing project in grammar. Understanding by design with the end in mind is how this was created. Within this extended writing project, you are going to be able to walk students through all the different processes. So you have the plan, draft, revise, edit, and publish. And then you are going to also have your skill lessons inside of this extended writing project directed at the writing skills. All of the units across all across a grade are going to cover all of the different styles of writing, including a research project and an oral presentation. You have an ELL resources blade, which houses its own EL instructional path. It'll have 2 to 3 texts that are still connected to the essential question and theme. However, students are going to walk through a close reading of these texts along with additional skill lessons to meet the WIDA standards. The next blade that you're going to have are the novel study blades. As you might have saw as I hit on to that 9th grade blade, you would have seen that the 9th grade, you have a pick your pathway connection into the novel studies. So therefore, you can choose to use a full novel to go through all the skills and standards for a unit. Or you can go through the thematic unit exploring various different texts. Or you can kind of combine the two depending on how rigorous you want to make this for yourself and for students. But they are comprised to kind of work together if you do choose to use that method. At the high school level, you'll note that the novel study unit option will come with its own unit overview, as well as its own blades of comparative reading and writing, culminating writing task and grammar, as well as the ELL resources, the end of unit assessment, and a reading guide. At the middle school level, for your novel studies can be taught in isolation from the entire thematic unit. Skills and standards are not tied in with them. However, you do have a comparative text study, which allows for you to incorporate those skills and standards in at really great points. If you want to learn more about our novel studies and how you can use these and the great ways that they really truly get students into a full text study, please note that we have ongoing webinars throughout the year that really speak to this and really give you great ideas. You can also always reach out to myself, and I'm more than happy to work with you on how you can best use the novel study units within your classroom. The final component of a unit is the end of unit assessment. Within the end of unit assessment, it's going to cover all the skills and standards for that particular unit. All of those texts will be completely new to those students. You do have the ability to go in and actually modify the end of unit assessment as you wish. You'll just clone that and then modify it at any point in time that you would want to. I'm going to come back to our integrated reading and writing pathway, and I'm going to now just really go quickly into what does it look like to create an assignment and assign that assignment, and then explore some of the other areas of the StudySync site. So once you are here and you've decided the particular text that you want, for the purpose of today, I'm going to use the monkey's paw. I'll go in and I'll actually want to do just a great practice, which is I want to preview that lesson. For this particular purpose, I'm going to preview the close read lesson for monkey's paw. And now I'm looking at the text in the ways that the student is now seeing it. I see that my vocabulary tab is on, and students will drag and drop those definitions and create their own sample sentences. I'm opening up to my read tab, and I note that there are 5 skill focused questions for my students. My audio is currently on. I have my annotation tool there for me, and I can turn those numbers on and off for students if necessary. I might go in as I'm previewing and set my proficiency level to beginning, just so that I can see the specific scaffolds that my students with specific proficiency levels will receive. And I'll note for myself and my own lesson plan how I'm going to instruct to students that are using scaffolds. Once I note those scaffolds, I might choose to make some decisions around this particular lesson, and therefore it might change the way that I'm going to customize when I am creating this lesson. I note that there are 5 skill-focused questions for this particular lesson. That could be really meaty for my students. I could also note that my students struggled with a particular skill that was taught prior to this. A really great pro tip is to break these skill-focused questions up by breaking your class up into various different groups. So if there's 5 skill-focused questions, maybe you're going to take 4 of those, and you're going to break the class into 4. Assign each of those groups a different skill-focused question, have them dig deeply into going back, highlighting the evidence, and creating the annotations and supporting their inferences that they would then share back with their entire class, and all of your students will now be learning from each other. I left out one of those skill focused questions because I stated that my students might have struggled with a particular skill. And therefore, I'm going to use that last skill focused questions to actually model for my students prior to them breaking out into groups, how to actually analyze the text around that particular skill again, just as a little refresher before they continue to get deeper into the text. The next place that I'm actually going to check out is my StudySync TV video, which is an exemplar level of academic discussion. And I note that my students are going to be analyzing and they're going to be checking out the writing prompt. And that is what that StudySync TV video is going to prepare my students for. I'll open up my teacher edition on the side, which is my lesson plan, and I might scroll to that number 3 so that I can see the questions that I'm going to engage my students with as they are watching the video, along with those timestamps, so I'm ready to stop the video and ask them those questions to ensure that they are digesting that content the best way that they can. The last component that I'm going to check out is the writing tab. Here I'm going to see the prompt to which students are going to have. I might check out that prompt guide and the discussion guide in order to see how my students are going to be able to dig through this prompt a little bit easier. And then I'm also going to check out the rubric so I know where I'm taking my students to, and they also have a view of this rubric and they can see. Once I've previewed this particular lesson, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to assign it. Once I am assigning a lesson, I will go in. The first thing I'll want to do is target the class that I want this particular lesson to go to, noting that I can target as many groups that I wish for this assignment. I'll then set the start and end dates, noting the first date that I want this assignment to appear in student's account, also noting the time that I want that assignment to appear. I'll then go to the end date, and in this end date is the last date for submission. I can allow late and let it hang out in the assignment section of their site, and note that it'll be just a blaring reminder that they still need to complete that or it's past due. And then if my assignment has peer review, I know I can set the last day that students can actually give feedback to their peers. And then there's the fun part. I can start customizing this particular assignment to fit my specific needs. So here I have the assignment details section where I can actually go in and write any specific instructions around how today's lesson will go. I might turn that audio off so I don't have 30 students playing through their individual laptop speakers out the audio at any given moment. I might keep the vocabulary on. I can turn on an introduction if I wish to reintroduce students to it. I can turn on a quick summary to see the English language reading summary for students that may need it. I'll keep the text on so students can do that. I have my focus questions on, and say I want my students to do their reading comprehension quiz here before they jump into those focus. I can turn that on as well. The next thing that I can do is I can actually start to select the specific questions that I want. During our preview, I stated that I'm going to actually have my students break up into 4 different groups and approach 4 of the different skill focus questions. So I'm actually going to go ahead and maybe turn off that first skill focus question so they're not distracted. And I'm actually going to use that skill focus question in order to engage my students in another model of analyzing the text for a particular skill. I have enabled my writing prompt and it's on set to the default close reading prompt. You do have 3 additional suggested prompts that you can give to students. These prompts are a little bit lower on the depth of knowledge scale, so they'll be about a 2 to 3. All of the close read prompts that are meant for a close read are at the level 4 of a depth of knowledge. And then finally, you have the assessment portion so students know exactly what they're going to do with that writing prompt. And then you'll want to decide how many peer reviews you want students to do. Once you've made all your customizing decisions, you can go back in and you can actually preview to ensure that the lesson looks exactly as you wish. So on my read tab, I have my hey here in my notes. I see that I've eliminated that first skill focused question because I'm going to use it as a model. And I've gone ahead and I've turned on the summary for students that may need that as well. I have my quiz that's on prior to my StudySync TV and my writing component, and I'm going to engage my students in all 10 of those reading comprehension quiz questions. My StudySync TV video is on, and I note that I still have my writing tab. So everything looks awesome. And then I'm going to create my assignment. Once you've created an assignment, you have two options. You can either return to the unit to continue assigning out further assignments, or you can go back to the assignment list, which is going to take you to the assignment section of our site. When you're here in that assignment section, this is where you can actually click into any of the assignments that you've given in order to see an assignment report. You'll see the date and time that the student posted this assignment, if they have actually worked on it but forgot to submit it, or if they didn't do anything at all. You'll also quickly see their grade for different components of the assignment that they completed, as well as the number of reviews they've given or received. From here, you can also do a couple of other things. You can decide to mimic and jump into a student's account if you need to go in and see their account from their point of view completely and maybe troubleshoot something for them, or just ensure that everything looks great for them. Or you can come out of that mimic there and note that you can actually, this is where you can get to that student's work and start grading their work. You'll note that the different components that need to be graded or you want to view are going to show there. You can start to move through thinking about how you want to grade those students, even noting that you can give a video response to students. So you can record your beautiful face. You can say a couple of words to them after you give them. Great job, student number one. I'm so proud of the work that you've done. Keep it up. It's going to save for your students, and that will pop up in their account, and they'll be able to watch that video feedback if you so choose to give that. Once you're done giving that feedback and grading students, you can save their review, and you can either return to the list, or you can stay on that student's work and move from student to student, grading the different components as you wish, sticking with that side as you want to as well. From the assignment section, you'll also want to note that if you want to create an individual assignment for yourself, if you already know the text, you can create it from there. If you want to find any of the tests that you've assigned from the assess section, you'll find all of your tests there as well. And then if you're looking for any specific rubrics, you'll find all of those rubrics there as well. We've gotten to a really great part where we've done a great review of the site, as well as understand about our how to create and assign particular assignments within our core curriculum. And so I'm going to pause for a second and just bring us back so that we can kind of reflect on where we've gone in this 45 minutes together. Within this 45 minutes, we've looked at the structure of the thematic unit, looking at the why behind it as well. We looked at the StudySync close reading routine and how to use it, pointing out different portions within it and how it goes through the surface, deep, and transfer of learning, having students answer the questions starting off from what does the text say to how does it say that, and then to what does that all mean. We then went on to look at really quickly how to create and customize StudySync assignments, and we looked at some of the features, tools, and resources that are also incorporated within this within the different units that you have there. I'm going to jump right back in live into our program for a last little bit of an overview of some other key places that you might want to check out. Within our library, you are going to find the text library defaulted when you first jump to it. When you filter, you'll be able to filter by genre as well as recommended grades and special features. Some of the special features that are really awesome are the English learner texts, which are written in-house by StudySync, that are written at 4 different Lexile levels and are meant to meet the needs for those proficiency levels that you see there for the EL. You'll also note that if you want to figure out all of the full text that we have available within the curriculum, you can filter for those, as well as all of our Spanish texts you can filter. If you're looking for text around a specific topic, you can explore all of our tags, search through the search bar, kind of scroll through the 600 if you wish, to find a text around a specific topic that may meet the needs of your specific activities within your classroom. You'll note that in the library, you also have the BLAST library. BLAST are our journalistic and current event style lessons. They are students' favorite part of StudySync, actually. They are meant to give students voice and choice throughout this particular lesson. You can assign a BLAST at 3 different Lexile levels, and that is automatically assigned out to students at their Lexile level when you set the proficiencies. You'll want to note that blasts are released brand new every single day of the school calendar year. And you'll also want to note that they cover a range of topics that can meet the needs of what's going on in the world today or things that you have happening in your own neighborhood. We always want new blast ideas. So if you have something that's going on in Georgia or just a really cool topic or some new science discovery that you know about that you're like, oh, that'd be cool if there was a blast on that, please suggest a blast. They take it so seriously. They'll listen to you all before they'll listen to me talk about them going out and looking at all the bugs that light up blue in North Carolina that I think are cool. But they would love to hear from you about different topics that you would love to see covered through our StudySync Blast area. The next place is the skills library. Within our skills library, you are going to have access to all of those skill lessons, but I do want to call out that you do have access to our Spotlight skills as well as our English Learner Spotlight skills. Spotlight skills are going to use a different model than that of our regular skill lesson, as they are going to use incomplete versus complete thinking. And it's going to walk through students through 2 to 3 different excerpts, showing them incomplete versus complete thinking around analyzing that particular text for that skill. The other awesome thing about Spotlight skills is that they are great for remediation and reinforcement because they use texts that are from the lower lexile of the grade that is called out or from the higher lexile of the previous grade. They also use text that students will not see within the core ELA. The last amazing thing about Spotlight skills, it ends in a your turn, which gives you another formative assessment for your students. And it also has 3 different items, which means it's 3 different texts with 3 different assess styles in order for students to show mastery. So talk about that around giving your students the chances in order to show that they truly have mastered this particular skill and are ready to take it just a little bit deeper and get a little bit rigorous as the year goes on. The other incredible way around how to access Spotlight skills is when you jump into our users section and you navigate to your gradebook and you navigate to that standards view. When you are in that standards view, you are actually going to be able to, and I want to navigate to a class that has some amazing data, so I do apologize for that. I'm going to go back to my users tab. I'm going to click on the grade book for my class that has do not delete, and I'm going to go to view it by standards. And so once you are here, you're able to actually see the color view that you can set for yourself in your settings. And so now I can see how each individual student is performing for any given standard that I've instructed to that had informative assessment around it at the end of that particular lesson. I can click on that student's percentage and I can actually see the questions that the student answered that were tagged for that particular standard. And I can go deeper into by clicking on this assignment and going to that student's work and doing item analysis around that for that particular student. The other great thing that you can do is using our standards mastery view, I could go in and call out a particular standard that my entire class is struggling with. I can then decide the standard that I want to focus in on, and I might say that I want to work on bringing up one of my mid to lower level standards at the beginning of the year. So I might navigate back to that standards tab using the particular skill that was called out. Click on that standard, and now I have standard remediation suggestions around that particular skill. And I already have Spotlight skills that are called out for me that I can go ahead, view, and assign out to that student population, as I now know through my quick data analysis that they'll need further instruction on. This is one incredible thing about the gradebook. It gets so much more robust, but we do have a ton of webinars and resources and tools that you can use in order to support you in best understanding how to actually navigate through the gradebook and how to actually use that data in order to inform your instructional decisions. But as we wrap up, let's just quickly look at some of our most common questions that we get. Is there a video or guide to help my students log in? Or is there student-facing instructions? There are within our help center. It's in the Leveraging a School to Home connection, and we have a ton of videos that are all student facing to help your students not only log in, but to navigate their account, understand how they can set up themselves on their student mobile apps, as well as we also have parent letters that are available for you within that section that you can send home to your parents. Another question is, where are the lesson plans? Even though you see them slide in during the preview, you can also locate your lesson plans in the gray box when you're in the instructional path, and it's in the teacher resource section, and you'll click it open and it opens up to a PDF. And remember, the pro tip is to scroll all the way to the bottom if you're looking for that answer key. And as we continue to think about what if you forgot all of everything I said, I talked too fast because there's so much I could also have included in this. There's some keywords that you can go into the Help Center and search for. Following this, some of the great ones would be the reading routine, how to create a StudySync classroom, or the teaching lab videos, which I am going to give an extreme push for because our teaching lab videos truly show you the StudySync lesson in action. And there are a lot of pro tips that pop up in the little blue bubbles that are in those videos. And then if anything, if you're in the moment and you have a really serious question, or you're just like, I just need a live person to answer something for me right now. We do have live chat, which is happening from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time from Monday through Friday. It is us live. We are there. And if we can't answer your question right there, we will connect you to your region or district specific implementation specialist. It happens to be me. So if you have a question, I'll just get filtered back and I'll definitely get that to you, or I'll have another specialist follow up with you. Another great thing is that we do have webinars that are ongoing throughout the year. If you have additional questions on customizing assignments or really modifying them to fit your specific needs, I'd suggest you come to our Customizing Assignments webinar, as well as if you're interested in some of the additional resources that are within the library, as well as our unit creator, where you can create your own unit, or how to create your own text and lesson, or create your own blast. Come to our Exploring the StudySync library, and we will walk you through all of those pieces. If you do have further questions around that library, or if you're looking for specific resources that you didn't see called out today, like if you want to know the assessment cycle and how we created our assessments, or if you want more information on the more deeper why, you can always reach out to myself at christy.cobb@studysync.com. I'm more than happy to connect you with further resources to support you. If you have technical questions or you need additional tech support, your first best stop is your administrator. And your next best is to actually contact McGraw-Hill Tech Support. My tip to you is to use the email. It just goes way faster for them.